And so that brings us to our second match, which is our match of the day. Major implications for player standings as far as this one are concerned. It's Kolento taking on Viper in this one. You might know these two, but we have a package so you can get to know them just a little bit better.
My name is Alexander Malsh. You might know me as Kolento. So I'm very quiet. I like spending time by myself. I think as a gamer, if you're very social, well, why would you play games? Just go hang out with somebody, right?
My name is Tom Val. My handle is Viper. The thing that sets my personality, or like is an advantage in Hearthstone, I feel like, is probably the very analytical, very mathematical approach to almost everything in my life. You can break down everything to a somewhat mathematical problem and then be like, okay, I can solve this. This is the best action to take. Most people don't really think through all these levels and think through all these things, so I feel like I have an edge in that regard.
I've been in Hearthstone since 2014, but back then I felt like I really was one of the best, if not even the best.
Kolento is one of the first persons I got to know. You always feel like, this guy, he's been here for so long, he's doing basically very, very well all the time and he wants to do well. Especially in GM, it's hard to read on Kolento. He's not a guy that he's gonna bring this deck every time or he's gonna do this every time, and he has really good tech cards and like very good technical play as well. So it's somewhat scary to face Kolento and it's not easy to just predict everything.
So Viper, I saw him at Worlds. I really can't say he played without making mistakes. So that might be to my advantage. If he will do the same when he'll be playing against me, I might have an extra edge. My strategy is just the correct one. People might say like I'm a defensive player. I'm not defensive. I'm trading when I feel like there's no way I can lose if I do it. I'm being aggressive if I feel like I'm behind. There's no defensive or offensive playstyle, it's just correct playstyle. Taking risks or not taking risks, it's all about what's more likely will bring you victory.
I'm not afraid of taking risks and just like going by percentages. I feel like I'm really well at analyzing stats. I'm really well at predicting the field, at predicting players. I play to win. I don't play to make the top card. I don't play to go for the safe picks. I just want to win. I want to be on top of everybody else. It's just a thing that it just like drives me. It just keeps me going. I don't know.
If you don't like winning, like what's the point? If you just want to earn money, you'll never be a professional gamer. I just like winning, and this drives me to become a better player.
You know, that's a line that Kolento has that really sticks with me, and probably will for a number of years. It's, if you just want to make money, you'll never be a professional player.
Yeah. I don't really have much to add to that, apart from, you know, I love that whole ending speech that he gives there. You know, he starts off with, oh, if you don't like winning, well, what's the point? You know, I've been massively competitive my entire life, and also people ask me, like, why do you care so much whether you win or lose? Like, why are you so competitive? It's like, why aren't you? Like, what is wrong with you people? Nothing matters more than winning things. Come on.
No comment on that. Let's take a look at Viper's deck and see what he's got in store for this one. Cyclone Mage is going to be the mirror match here, but this is a tale of secondary decks, I think, where if you take a look at the main deck from Viper here, it's pretty lean, mean, and just a machine, but his secondary and tertiary offers nothing for the matchup that he's about to face,
right?
Versus Kolento's Cyclone Mage deck, and that's where Kolento, I think, picks up a big edge in the matchup.
Yeah. Key to know, there are 2 Frost Novas and 2 Rare Frost in the primary deck for Viper. Of course, that is borderline standard these days, but Kolento, you go across, and suddenly he's bringing in a Frostbolt as well into the primary, which can function as a very powerful freeze effect if he needs it. Both players rocking the Luna's Pocket Galaxy in their primary, but then the real kicker comes in, which is Kolento's secondary deck, in which he adds 2 copies of Snap Freeze, which can be combined with those Rare Frosts or those Frostbolts to take care of giants. A Questing Adventurer, which is just an absurd threat early in the game that the opposing mage is not able to take care of, and then an additional Blizzard, which breaks the tie of kind of the back and forth freeze race between the 2 decks, on average to the deck with more freezes in it, which means Kolento.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that Questing Adventurer is such a premium threat in the matchup too, because Mage just doesn't really play a lot of answers to it right now. They have plenty of answers to it. It's just that the deck is so tightly packed with the cards that you need to have in the deck. You're very limited in how much removal you'd like to play. And for Viper, that has meant pretty exclusively Ray of Frost. in terms of straight up killing something. And so I fear for him in games 2 and 3, but game 1 here I think is super important as well. If Viper doesn't steal game 1, I am very worried for his chances.
Yep, and his chances here have never been more important because the stakes in this one are nowhere near as cryptic as they were in our first series of the day. The reason why this is our match of the day is this is a direct head-to-head qualifier. This is win and in, lose and go home for the one remaining spot in Division A.
13 matches, 7 weeks, and now 3 games. Max.
At most, exactly. Well?
I see merits to 2 of these secrets. I'm going to ignore the splitting image for now.
I'm interested in the splitting image because it's kind of the hardest one to fully exhaust from Viper's side, right? Like, it's the hardest one for him to figure out what it is in certain situations, so therefore offers the most bluff potential, the most disruption over to Viper's side. But, you know, a counterspell is a counterspell.
Wow. Now I'm very interested in the hand. It's very rare, I think, that you have multiple different avenues that all mean very different things with Mage. A lot of times it's you have one direction, which is get to a big swing turn. Pavel has the opportunity to wait for a swing turn. He has the opportunity to get very aggressive, and he has the opportunity to try to play for big colossal effects with Stargazer Luna. And that only happens if you like literally have Sorcerer's Apprentice and Stargazer Luna and a Mountain Giant in your hand.
The Double Ray is the first check, though, but even that is a win for Kolento because Double Ray of Frost being forced to take care of a 3-2 means that that is 2 copies of a freeze effect that cannot be targeted at a huge minion like a giant later on in the game. Kolento's just going to keep on curving out here, and this is so directly contrary to what Viper wants to happen. Firstly, he's going first, which is a miserable spot to be in the matchup. You want to have coin. Secondly, when you are going first, you want to have had Kolento's hand. If you're going first, you want to be playing minions and curving out, not sat there with a handful of giants having to play the removal game on your opponent curving out, whilst they also have the fallback plan B of having the coin in hand. This is actually as badly as it could have gone.
This is
Viper
this is definitely a nightmare right now. Kolento does have to play the turn a bit awkward if he wants to keep going. You know, you're not really happy to freeze your own Luna, but I think the attack of 2 damage is the auxiliary effect. Very clearly from the text of the card. If you play the rightmost card, draw a card. My favorite thing to do in every game, draw tons of cards.
Behold,
it's a card game, I want to draw them.
Creation.
Question about that 2 damage, because I believe the way it functions is if he were to skip his attack and just immediately freeze. Freeze is defined as missing your next attack, so the next attack would count as the one this turn, and then next turn Luna would be available to attack, which could end up being a much more important attack than that 2 damages.
It could be. My take on it is I don't really want Luna to trade into stuff ever. I want my opponent to have to handle that.
Okay.
So if this is frozen and I've gotten 2 damage from it, and they want to take care of a frozen minion, I've already got my value from it.
What if mirror images are on the board? Is that more valuable than dealing 2 damage?
It's an excellent question. You know, mirror images both have benefits and consequences in the matchup.
Yes, they do.
I think if I'm in Kolento's spot here, I'm not worried about mirror images.
I currently would be somewhat worried about mirror images from Kolento's side because he is looking at a no Sea Giant hand versus a mystery hand from the opponent, which on average, when you have 0 Sea Giants in your hand, your opponent has more Sea Giants in their hand than you do.
Yeah, I don't think he's worried about anything with the turns of Vipers.
That is probably quite accurate, yes.
Viper is approaching Dunzo as his official status. We are about to enter the Haymaker turns, though. When you see Kolento not draw an extra card from the Ray of Frost and then, you know, play a Mountain Giant instead, the Luna certainly becomes less of a priority.
I wonder.
Viper's thinking about Counterspell and is thinking about Spellbender as well. I believe in the event of Counterspell, Twin Spell does not activate.
Correct.
So that Ray of Frost, it becomes a very important expenditure if he runs into Counterspell.
Time runs out on me.
But honestly, no matter what he does here,
Ooh.
he is going to get some real bad news now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the situation you fell into, right? Mage is an extremely volatile matchup. When both players have pretty decent draws, I think it is one of the most interesting and beautiful matchups to watch. We are currently witnessing what I believe is the complete blowout side of things.
So if Kolento goes Khadgar Conjurers here, then the turn will end with 7 minions in play, which would mean Sea Giant Frost Nova would be a possibility from the other side with a live attacking giant as well.
Yeah, I think with what Kolento just saw, he's more interested in just shutting off any potential from Viper's side.
Exactly. It's kind of what I was leading to. I very much agree with this. Just take care of the problem in front of you.
And honestly, this is pretty directly correlated with his secondary game plan, where he brings in 2 Snap Freeze. I think he's looking to take the matchup slower and simply disrupt all the possibilities that the opposing mage can have. Say, it's difficult for you to deal with a giant. I have come prepared specifically to deal with giants.
Yep. I think this is really smart. I think so many players there would have just snapped the obvious looking turn, and it did open up counterplay opportunities for Viper that just aren't really available against just 1/8/8 hitting you in the face.
And you heard him say it in the media piece where he said, I don't feel like I'm a defensive player. I trade when I feel like trading means that I can't lose the game afterwards.
Right.
His take on it is that in a theoretical world, Hearthstone is solvable. He's trying his best to solve that. I think a lot of those times he looks right.
What to do?
He does run into a slight problem with mirror images now, though,
Just like you.
where he just doesn't really interact particularly favorably with them.
This Cyclone needs to go nuts. Think you don't know what you need, so I save the magic trick. There's something that Viper doesn't interact particularly favorable with as well.
Well, no one really interacts particularly favorably with this. Likely we will see this 2 remaining mana being allocated to a ping on that Sea Giant.
Notice that Kolento did not attack mirror images. This was intentional to make Viper's board stay as awkward as possible.
No, okay.
Limit the board space so that way Viper doesn't have an option.
Doesn't get full value out of the second Conjurer's Calling.
The rare single taunt from Khadgar.
Yeah, and does leave the value trades available for the 8/8 on the other side, and that is an additional copy of Frost Nova or a Snap Freeze available now for Viper. This is where some of the ties can really start to be broken, or when the matchup can really swing back around the other way. Kolento has no board freezes available, which is actually one of the decisions that influences whether you push through 0/2 taunts. Because if you're being aggressive, as Kolento was early on, pushing through those 0/2 taunts seems to be in your favor, right? So you can push damage and end the game. But then if if Viper's able to replace those 0/2 taunts with big minions of his own, you don't have the freeze effect to lock that out the turn after. So those mirror images on your opponent's board are kind of functioning as your Frost Novas in a weird way by stopping there being live attacking minions on the board.
Yeah, this was an interesting turn for Viper as well, where you see the mirror images become an active liability here. Does he want to trade his Sorcerer's Apprentice for a random 6-drop? He is considering not doing so. And I think when you were considering not getting a random 6-drop instead of a Sorcerer's Apprentice, it is a very large tell of how important he feels that card is right now.
And that is not the only major decision point he had remaining there, because pinging the Khadgar was an option, but also pinging one of his own 0/2s so he can then take it off the board over a couple of turns is an option on top of that as well. So even with 0 mana remaining that turn, Viper actually had a couple of crucial decisions to still make as the rope was burning.
Yeah, and so what I'm looking at here is that Banana Buffoon is going to act as that hero power my own mirror images effect.
Yep.
And he's going to look to take advantage from there. So Kolento gets to check the counter spell with a freshly drawn basically nothing at this point.
Freshly drawn nothing.
And Archmage Antonidas joins the party.
This time the ping does go to prevent a value trade over a 7 attack minion.
Kolento hasn't necessarily looked excited about these situations. I've been watching his facial expressions.
Nope. I think once that counter turn came down, I think Kolento was kind of playing with Sea Giants in mind with the way he looked at it, and also preventing Conjurer's Callings on the Mountain Giant that was on board. But because specifically Viper was able to have a powerful turn that combined, you know, Mana Cyclone with getting that Sea Giant down, Kolento was just not as far ahead as he appeared to be throughout the first few turns. And now with that randomly generated freeze from Viper, it's actually putting him in potentially a situation where he can get himself a turn ahead.
Well, he gets a trade over this, and he gets a Frost Nova.
Time runs out on me.
And he's looking at how the rest of this goes. How many of these mirror images do I need to keep around? I need a Conjurer's Calling this turn to keep the push going.
I think a banana goes on a mirror image to suicide it. You then have 2 mana remaining to ping the 2/1 plus Frost Nova plus Conjurer's Call. Viper disagrees.
Well, I think he just had a moment of, the mirror images are acting as the Frost Nova, like you said.
Yeah.
I really am sad that we have these big bad Archmages that are not generating minions. This greatly upsets me.
Yeah, no, actually, I like this. He does get to preserve his Frost Nova in hand. I'm kind of had Caster Vision that turn where I'm like looking at Viper having Frost Novas and Kolento not having them, and just thinking, you know, he's fine, he's chilling. But actually, throwing away a Frost Nova here, it might be like the last turn he can stay alive if he does that. So I think stretching it out here by using the mirror images as his Frost Nova makes perfect sense.
Problem 1.
Oh, this is about problem 7 by this point. I don't know where you're getting 1 from.
Well, we're here.
Okay. Okay. And there you go, Kolento's timing.
Luna!
Kolento's timing says this is the time where I will allow you to have board space because I just have Antonidas on board. I want to threaten lethal. I want one of these giants to connect face next turn. Set up lethal for myself.
Behold the tools of creation.
Luna!
Oh, ho, ho.
Behold the tools of creation.
Luna! Oh my gosh! Viper might win!
Behold the tools of creation.
I think he's been in firmly might-win territory for several turns now, but that Luna has been the absolute kicker for sure. Yikes.
Says have your fireballs. You're not gonna have time for that.
Okay, just a 4/5.
You'll never win might be an accurate statement from the big bad Archmage here. Viper's got Mana Cyclone, he's got Luna up right now, and Kolento needs to check a lot of this damage.
Well, so, like, bare minimum, first thing that I see, Fireball ping the 7/7, Fireball the 4/5. He's alive, and he's still threatening lethal next turn. I don't think his position is as dire as you might think.
I'm quite curious about the big bad Archmage not hitting the Archmage Antonidas.
There must be a way.
Could it? What happened? Did it
Just
go
went
face?
face, yeah.
Did it go face? Okay.
Kolento's thinking about Sea Giant and if that muddies the board too much.
So, like I said, this is the first thing that I saw. On further consideration, can you leave 2 extra damage in play for the sake of taking out the Luna? At that point, there'd be 10, 16, 18 represented. I feel like it's still okay. Luna's Pocket Galaxy off the top with Luna in play.
I feel like Mana Cyclone shenanigans are going to have to happen here.
For Viper?
Yeah, he needs another freeze.
But he still has freezes remaining in his deck. He doesn't have to get it from Mana Cyclone. One of them was already randomly generated from the first Mana Cyclone. So he can just draw naturally through his deck and find the Frost Nova. Ziliax?
It's just
good enough.
Such a poor position. He doesn't have the mana.
Yeah. I think it's the right thing to fish for as well. If he plays Luna's Pocket Galaxy, he has to get a Frost Nova exactly or a card that costs 2 or less to continue drawing for a Frost Nova, whereas Arcane Intellect gives him 2 draws immediately, plus any draw that costs 4 or less.
I think this is coming down to a Conjurer's Calling.
On what?
On a 3-drop. And you need to hit it with Khadgar and 2 Wolf Riders, I think. I don't think this ever...
Whoa, okay.
Like, don't you just die?
That's a spicy out right there.
Like, you just die this way, right?
I am not sure. I will take the coward's way out and wait for the board state to resolve.
He's technically alive.
Nope, he isn't.
But the fireball in hand.
Yep, and he knows it's there.
The only out, once he got to that spot, I think, was exactly Khadgar, Conjurer's Calling, hit 2 Wolf Riders for the 6 extra damage. Because he had 8 in play from the Giant. He had the 2 from the Banana Buffoon. He had 2 from Luna. That's 12 damage. He has what was the other size of the minion?
A 2/2, I think.
We had Banana Buffoon, we had Stargazer Luna, we had Sea Giant, and X for whatever Nozari. There we go.
Yes, 4.
So that's 16 right there, and then 6 more from a Conjurer's Calling on a 3-drop.
22.
Because the Khadgar is always going to summon an additional copy of whatever the first minion is.
Yeah.
So he only has 1 chance because his board's going to be full. So if that first minion is Wolf Rider, he secures 6 damage in that spot. I think that might have been the actual only way for him to win that spot. Oh, Raid Leader. Would Raid Leader have done it? No, because he can't.
He can't. Yeah, you lose an attack on the minion that you
can attack with one of the 2/2s, and then if you hit Raid Leader off that, you get 6 additional attack across the 3 that are attacking as well.
Yes.
His only out, once he got into that end spot, was a Khadgar Conjurer's Calling.
Yeah, so Conjurer's Calling on a 3-drop actually was pretty high value. It's worth noting as well, like, we're talking about the scenario after he cast the Arcane Intellect and got into that position. Because, as I kind of laid out, I think that was the correct call in that position. That gave him maximum outs to either A, hit a Frost Nova, or B, continue to hit a cheap enough draw that he could continue chaining towards a Frost Nova. Unfortunately, neither of those things happened.
Yeah, it's a thing of slight edges. But right now, the match means everything. It's winning in for both players, and that's it. We got to go to a quick break. When we come back, our match of the day is going to continue for Kolento versus Viper. Kolento up a game and has some tricks up his sleeve when it goes to the secondary deck. So stay tuned. This one is super important.
Darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. Surely scorching deserts and
Welcome back to the Tavern. It's the Hearthstone European Grandmasters. We are in our final day of the final week of the regular season. And that's admirable. And joining me is Sottle. And Sottle, right now we are amidst our match of the day. Kolento is up a game over Viper and gets to pad that percentage even a little bit more going into game 2.
He does indeed. I just want to clarify the point before the break as well. I looked it up. There are 107 total 3-drop minions in the game. Prior to the most recent patch with the cards being added, I'm not sure if that changed it. It's actually the most populated minion spot in the game, which means it's the lowest chance of finding a 1 or 2 outer in the game. But it was a chance, and I think it's worth talking about. But yeah, back on context, it's a huge series, and more so than, you know, any minor outs that he may or may not have missed. It's a huge loss for Viper because of the fact that Kolento now switches to a vastly superior version of his deck for the matchup.
Yeah, he gets to add in a couple copies of Snap Freeze, which if you saw game 1, he very much played to that style of play, which was restricting the opponent option, so that way he has the seat of superiority the whole time. He gets to add in a Questing Adventurer, which is a pretty premium threat in the matchup, as you've seen how tough it is to remove minions without a direct effect. Like Snap Freeze, that'll do so. Gets to add in a copy of Blizzard, which you saw how important freezes were in game number 1. That is very much what the matchup ends up boiling down to if both players have a reasonable draw, is who gets to freeze first and take advantage of it.
You also saw a turn where Viper was able to extend out his freezes by locking out the board state with just mirror images for a turn. You cannot do that with as much security if your opponent has the card Blizzard in their deck, because they will blow straight through that and hit you in the face with 4 giants, and you are dead. That one-shots you.
Reversal of fortunes for Viper here, though, as he has coin in this matchup. Coin is super important to the way that you play the game. You want extra cards, you want more cards in hand.
Kolento, though, as I mentioned last game, if you're going first, you want some semblance of a minion curve, and that's what he has. Banana Buffoon at least able to get that started. 2-mana 2/2, if you really want it, can get down there and start trucking away.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I would do. This is...
You check your bracelet, WWFD. What would Fino do?
Yeah, and I think Fino would play the 2/2 here for a number of reasons. Number one...
I'm not so sure, but go ahead.
At least, I'll tell you what. Boar Control would have played this. I'm hoping he tweets at me with this. Number one, you don't have a direct answer to Sorcerer's Apprentice without delaying either your Banana Buffoon or your Arcane Intellect. You do not want to have 3 mana occupied because you didn't use 2 mana right now. So that's the first benefit of it. Number 2, you do get to start chipping away. Chipping away is important, but it's more important, I think, when you have exactly Banana Buffoon in your hand, where that damage can compound very quickly. And then number 3, you get a way to check Stargazer Luna when you have a minion in play. Coin Stargazer Luna here would have been unchecked, and I agree that that's a very slim reason to do it, but it is a reason.
What to do?
I take all of those minor points and counter with Mana Cyclones are really good later on.
Yeah, but I like damage.
Yeah, I know.
And I like minions, and I like not getting blown up.
I'm not sure. Honestly, you made some good points. You swayed me a little bit.
Now, that being said, Kolento does have Snap Freezes in his deck.
Yeah.
He does have Questing Adventure in his deck. He has more incentive, I think, to get value from a Mana Cyclone's Battle Cry than he does to try and check what Viper's going to do. His deck already is naturally checking what Viper's going to do quite well. So that, to me, would be a major diversion point if you had a double Snap Freeze come in. even if you don't have it, your opponent has to fear it.
Oh, for sure, yes. Viper here, nothing really doing. Just looks like a clean Arcane Intellect turn to me. Still not finding huge amounts of gas. Very slow hand yet again for Viper, even with the coin this time.
I'll be interested in Book of Specters. I think at this juncture, Viper is looking pretty specifically for minions that have impact. Losing some of the spells could hurt, but at the end of the day, not having the right minions will hurt more. So I'm curious to see if that becomes an emergency tool he's interested in as soon as next turn.
Yeah. Some of the spell discards definitely can be devastating in the matchup. I think most matchups, it's that equation that you talk about is more accentuated than it is in the mage matchup because cards like Frost Nova and Conjurer's Calling are so important. But it comes down to the kind of fallacy of way people think about drawing and discarding cards where, you know, a card that you drew and discarded might as well be on the bottom of your deck as long as you don't go to fatigue. You know, it's results oriented to think, well, I discarded exactly my Frost Nova. That was always a bad thing for it to happen to me.
Yeah. I think in Mage, it's one of the spots where it is most interesting about discards.
Yeah.
Because the deck so heavily plays towards possibilities.
Viper actually only capable of drawing 2 here. And I think from that wry smile, he drew 3. Yes, he did.
Well, I think if there's one you're okay seeing go away, it's probably Sea Giant. You already have one in hand.
It's a great counter pressure tool in the matchup.
It definitely is.
It starts to get to the freeze war period.
I think he'd rather it be a Sea Giant than a Mana Cyclone, though.
What to do?
If someone told me Mana Cyclone was my bottom card or Sea Giant was my bottom card. If someone told me Sea Giant was bottom or Mana Cyclone was bottom and I had to pick one in this spot, Sea Giant every time.
Yeah, okay. I think you're right.
Right now, though, it looks like Viper is going to be playing exactly towards Dark Mage Antinitis, which makes me curious about the coin versus the evocation. I'm not sure which one's more valuable.
Well, in the context of just purely the Archmage Antinitis, obviously the coin is more valuable. The problem is that Elemental Evocations just have more upside with other cards in your deck. So it's a balancing act, weighing that up. I don't think he's necessarily tunneled towards that Antinitis yet. I think a solo Antinitis push alongside against a deck that is playing Snap Freeze is not going to work out so well. Antinitis is at its most powerful in a situation like we saw from Kolento last game in the matchup, where it's just board state, you're hitting those freeze wars, so you introduce an X factor. You introduce something into the equation. It's like, I don't care if you freeze me anymore because I will just keep generating fireballs.
Board objective.
Yep.
Hey, Sottle.
Hey.
Here's a board objective for you.
Thanks, Admirable.
Oh, Viper's draws are just not good. He needs tech support right away. Something's going wrong. And I need things to go right.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
If that was a thing right now, happy to exchange this one out. Plot twist! He needs a plot twist.
Can we just play a different game? Is that okay? The really brutal thing for Viper, though, here is that, yeah, I mean, that, first and foremost, but secondly, if he just flips the game state around, like if Kolento was the one here that was just facing, like they've both had a fairly slow draw, but if Kolento was the one facing down just Solitary Giant here, Kalento's deck has answers for that. He could happily just go, all right, Snap Freeze, we move on.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily just the 8-8 that Viper's worried about. It's that the 8-8 represents... Well, I didn't know it represented this harshly. It represents Conjurer's Calling.
It does.
And Viper just paid a massive amount of respect to that.
Look at his face. That is the face of a man that knows he's made one of the most important decisions of his career there, and it's a bold call, and it's very telling that we have both of these players talking specifically about tough decisions and taking risks in their interviews before this game, but you combine how difficult a decision like that is to make, how hard a call that is to make with the gravity of the situation, and you get that kind of emotion from Viper. From Viper. I will exclamation mark from Viper, one of the most stoic players that we see in Hearthstone.
The only time I ever see him really upset is if he had a major turn where there was a million things going on and he like missed a point of damage or something.
Yeah, he did everything right on his turn but forgot to play around Betrayal at the end. Oh, unforgivable.
But Luna is another board objective for you.
That was such a huge call out from Viper in the previous turn to just say 4 Ray of Frosts, 4 potential freezes into shutting down Conjurer's Calling. Because if my opponent goes Conjurer's Calling there, I'm not equipped to win the freeze wars anyway, so I have to stop Conjurer's Calling from happening. I think it makes sense. It's so far out of left field that like I would struggle to break it down without an enormous amount of time to do so. And Viper had 70 seconds in one of the most important matches of his career to date. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's not getting better. It's getting much worse. On that look from Viper, I feel for him. Sometimes it just bees that way.
That additional FN, Frost Nova, spells fabulous news for Kolento. Because now he's essentially free to just enter whatever phase of the Mage Mirror he'd like to. He's ahead on pressure, he's ahead on board objectives, he's ahead on disruption, he's ahead on value, he's ahead on freezes. TLDR, he's ahead.
You know, I like celebrating winners in Hearthstone. I really do. But one of the tests that I've seen of players in their careers for a very long time is taking tough losses and then bouncing back from it stronger. And one of the players that comes to mind for me is RDU.
I wonder.
RDU in Shanghai in 2016 was facing off against Kolento for a spot at the World Championships. And Kolento was down to a situation where he needed to draw exactly preparation or he lost the game. Kolento drew that preparation. And I remember backstage, RDU was talking to me about all the work and all the time he had put into Hearthstone and how in that moment it felt so bad that he just wanted to quit. And he didn't. And then 2 years later, you look up and he's playing in Hearthstone Grandmasters. Bouncing back from tough losses, I think, is one of the marks that makes players truly special and truly stand out. And for Viper here, this is one of those tests he's going to have to face. This is a tough loss. And I don't think there was anything he could have done about it.
What I took from that story is that Kolento's really good at crushing people's dreams.
I'm glad you made light of that story, because the follow-up to that is, I do enjoy celebrating winners.
Yeah, I mean, Kolento is, of course, very much deserving of being in this position. He is a fantastic player. It has been throughout a number of years and really hasn't seemed to miss a step. He's come in intermittently back into top-level competition, and every time he's done so, he's shown that he hasn't missed a beat.
Just smoothly.
Behold the tools of creation.
Just actively setting up lethal for the following turn. Pyroblast from hand for 9.
Nothing here.
Nope. It looked for a while like he was going to go towards an Antonidas out, but he was forced to just burn so many resources into taking care of that Mountain Giant. That is the big call from Viper in this game. And now with the Apprentice not answered, Kolento with the 2-turn setup is going to rip the Pyroblast, deal the damage. Viper with the wryest of chuckles. The heart goes out to him, but Kolento with a dominant performance in a matchup that he went into favored has now secured his place in the playoff finals out of Division A alongside Bunny Hopper and Fino. And you can just see he looks delighted about it.
He is super stoked.
He's pumped.
That is, you know, that is probably the first time I have ever heard Kolento's facial expression described as pumped. Ever.
I don't think he knows how to make that facial expression.
He just did.
Oh, okay.
It's
Sorry,
very
my
subtle,
bad,
but
my bad.
Sottle's an expert in the topic. He knows it.
But I mean, it was almost difficult to watch in places. But of course, we have we have Kolento standing by, ready to talk to. So we should focus, of course, on his victory. Kolento, you hear us?
Hello, guys.
So obviously, you're a very calm, collected kind of character. Did you feel any extra pressure going into that massively important match?
Was it important?
Yes, it was very important. If you lost that match, you were not in playoffs.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
So now knowing that, would that have changed your perspective if you had known that prior to the match?
No, I don't think so.
Over the years,
As I said before,
I'm sorry,
like
continue.
as I said in previous interview, it's just like what's on the line. How does it affect how you play? Like you always want to do your best, right? I mean, extra pressure only makes it worth if you overthink it.
I think that's very fair. Let's talk about some things that you definitely will have put some thought into, though. The fact that you had a dedicated deck for Mage in your tertiary deck or secondary deck, whichever one it was. Obviously, that had a big impact. We talked to you yesterday about how you didn't feel it was important to have anti-rogue. You talked to us about some of the choices you made to be anti-mage.
Yeah, so it has Snap Freeze. Oftentimes you want to go Giant and Curve, and Snap Freeze is very good at stopping that. That makes sense. I cut Snip Snap. This one is like so. It's like a 5th card. It's whatever. Baron of Buffoon has a very good win rate in the mirror because, say you go first, you really need to make this hand size. Like if you have Snap Freeze, you can stop them from playing Giant first. Then you play Giant first. If they don't do it, if they wait for the Conjurers and you run away with the game, if you have hand size and Baron Buffoon helps you with that. And I have Blizzard. Well, I don't know about that, but oftentimes I feel like in game number 1, there was a board state where he had a bunch of mirror images. Blizzard would be so good there, right?
Yeah. I am curious about some of the cards you take out. You actually took out a Luna's Pocket Galaxy and an Archmage Antonidas. Why those cards in the matchup?
I remember I was watching a broadcast and some of you guys, or maybe it weren't you, but some other casters were saying that Archmage is very important. It's actually like almost never used. Like it's very late. It's 7-drop, and those fireballs don't do anything. You just want to before 7, most like 70-80% of the time you just get the Giant out, and if your opponent doesn't have the Giant, you win. I mean, not you, but one of the players, right? And when this doesn't happen, you just don't have any cards left to go together with Archmage anyways. You have to freeze the board every turn, and to play Archmage into freeze, it's 9-10 mana. And Luna's Pocket Galaxy also doesn't have high win rate in the matchup for the same reason. You can just drop a Giant on 4, on 3, on 5. It doesn't matter where you drop it. I actually had Luna's Pocket Galaxy against... was it against me? No, maybe I'm mistaken. I think it was on stream before I was playing. Yeah, so I don't know. Like, it feels like I was playing on cast. Anyway, so... Oh yeah, I think it was in previous match. Yeah, so I just dropped a Giant. And, I could call out Pocket Galaxy, but to just play the Giant was better. Like Pocket Galaxy, it's like high rolly. It's pretty good against Warriors. That's why it's in the deck. But if you can cut it, like, I feel like it's a great advantage to have. That's why it's a part of the reason I have a dedicated deck to counter mages. So you can just cut this Pocket Galaxy. It's very good, I think.
So what I'm hearing is that the matchup is all about more now in play.
It's more about playing Jack. That's it.
Well, Kolento, we're glad that we were able to break the news to you that that was a massively important match and that you have now qualified. So congratulations. We will let you go and celebrate if that's a thing that you even do.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
I feel like his chuckle was like, you know it's not.
I sure do.
I'm going to go celebrate now by playing more mage.
Dude, Kolento is actually like just my Patronus. Like I aspire to being that nonchalant about everything. It's incredible. I genuinely admire it. How are you just never gotten to by anything ever? That's absurd.
It is very different because I feel like everything always gets to me.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's in a positive way or negative way, not even really accounting for it. It's just always very extreme.
Yes. You have enormously emotional reactions on both ends of the scale to various situations.
Huh.
And Kolento is just constant middle ground. It's incredible.
It's interesting. Let's take a look at the standings, though, and see how that shapes up. That's an interesting thought, actually, because I am very much just not like that at all. And that's why I'm not 10-4 in Grandmasters, tied with Fino, who started out 9-0 in Hearthstone Grandmasters here. Kolento now ties the match record for him. But that is the top 3 you're looking at that are advancing to playoffs next week.
Yep, you can see Viper 8 and 6. That is 14 matches played. That is him done and dusted. Bunny Hopper, same thing. Kolento, same thing. So there will be no further developments in that top 3. That is your top 3. Fino, #1 seed, gets the bye through the next stage of competition. And Kolento and Bunny Hopper will go in as 2nd and 3rd seeds. Kolento as 2nd seed, I believe, means he now crosses division and goes into the opposing divisions bracket, whereas the second seed from Division B will come over to face off against Fino and Bunny Hopper in that bracket.